Hi, guys, and welcome back to Niall and our unofficial studio press centre in Manchester. This is a little delayed because there was a lot of emotions going on, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but we need to discuss semi-final one. Let's start. Before we start, do remember to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and ring the notification bell. And let's just get into the show itself. Let's start with the overall show. I feel like the Swiss are doing a pretty good job. There's a lot they're taking from Sweden. I mean, they've even stolen the green room, which I was surprised at. It's the exact same green room.
It is, but they did say recycling. It is the one. It is the most sustainable edition so far. So they recycled Petra last year, and this year,
and again,
and this year again, and they recycled the green room this year. No, but I like that green room though. It's a good one.
Yeah, and it works. I think I said to you yesterday. I wonder if this means we're getting the same green room in all competitions. Moving forward, might be a good cost saving measure. Anyway,
yeah, definitely.
I do want to mention the postcards and the stage ready graphics as
Gorgeous.
well.
Yeah, beautiful.
Slick, beautiful. It's very nice to see real postcards again.
Yeah.
With the act in the host country, beautiful.
Yeah,
I like that they've kept the artist card at the end of the postcard, highlight line more and not just focus on the fact that it's a country. You get to see the artist.
Yeah. Let's also just talk about, if we're talking about technicalities, let's talk about the stage, which I think is phenomenal.
It's beautiful.
Fantastic.
I wasn't sure of the frame. That's what I'm calling it, the frame.
Yeah.
Well, it does work, especially with the stage ready graphic.
Yeah. But also in some of the stagings, it looks really, really cool because it's not just there. It's also like it lights up and it does really cool stuff. So
they've used it really quite well in some of the camera angles as well. Like we'll get into this more, but Red used it really well. That was one of the standouts for me of using the frame.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like the walking on it. Then they also put the frame up. I read that sort of like to mask towers that were there.
Yeah, they've built towers, so they're hiding to make sure that they can hide everything.
Yeah.
The Made in Switzerland song with Petra.
You see, Petra saved that for me. I was not feeling that until Petra came out. And you can just tell that Petra is a born comedian. I mean, she is an actress. She is a born comedian. I will say I did like the idea, of Made in Switzerland. I liked the idea of it. I just didn't think the jokes necessarily landed. And then Petra comes on stage and everything just felt natural at that point because she just exudes. She is just a comedic figure.
Yeah.
Even when she doesn't try to be.
I don't think there's not anything that she can't do and make it funny.
Yeah.
The collective gasp and scream that you heard on Tuesday night, wherever you are in Europe, was every single gay person near you seeing Petra Mead. Just that was a tweet I saw from someone on. I'm like, you know what? True, because we had a similar reaction.
Yeah,
the only thing that I was upset about was I had seen a spoiler that she was there. I didn't know in what context, but
you see, when you said, because you said that to me earlier the day, I've just seen spoiler, I'm not going to tell you, but I've seen a spoiler for tonight. And I had also seen someone say, I think it was Dude that said, someone cannot get a year off.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, but when you said spoiler, I didn't put the two together, and I thought the spoiler was about Celine Dion.
Right.
And I didn't want to tell you that I'd already know that there was a message from Celine Dion because I'd seen that spoiler myself.
I had seen that spoiler. Yeah. Apparently, we're hearing there's still talks ongoing. I don't know if that's happening.
I think that's wishful thinking.
Possibly so, but it's nice to see her. And also, the class of 2024 doing the Party Pas à Moi. Absolutely stunning. Nice to see them.
I hated that.
Oh, really?
They murdered that song, honestly. It was a nice effort. The vocals were nice, but
well,
if you can't make it better, don't do it. And we're talking about Celine Dion. That's like
No one can make Celine Dion better. But
exactly. It was a nice tribute to Celine Dion, but like.
It was nice to see the class of 2024 back though, and
True.
being able to enjoy the competition rather than
Yeah.
what they went through last year. We've talked about that a lot. Okay, is there anything else about? Oh, we need to mention the hosts. Obviously, there was a technical difficulty in figuring out the voting. The filler interviews where Hazel was showing us her tongue.
Yeah, but then they also did. There was a moment after that because you said, "Oh, this is obviously filler. There's something going on," but then they did something that I'd already heard from other people watching the jury show and the afternoon preview that was going to happen. So I don't know if it really was filler, or I don't know if it really was because there was an issue, or if that just was scripted.
Because they have confirmed there was a delay because of a technical issue.
I just read that there was a technical issue with some people wanting to vote for Croatia and getting a pop-up that they voted for Israel, who's also performing 14th in the second semi. But it didn't necessarily say that that was why there was a possible delay in the results.
I'm just going from what Scott Brown, British TV critic, has been told by the BBC. So the BBC said there was a delay based on the voting.
Okay.
So who knows? Who knows what was going on?
Oh, anyway. Do you know what we need to discuss for a brief moment? And we screamed and laughed out loud when Martin Österdahl came on screen, and he wasn't allowed to say his famous line, "You're good to go." I think the neighbors, if they were asleep, they woke up because we screamed at that.
Also, if they were asleep, it was only 10 o'clock. Like, why are you going to bed?
They weren't. By the way, they weren't asleep because we could not sleep. Because they were making a lot of racket in the middle of the night.
Anyway, we need to. There's a little brief overview of the overall show. Now we do need to get into the music. So we had 9 Neil Plas certified qualifiers. 7 of those have qualified. So they are Norway, Albania, Sweden, Netherlands, Poland, Estonia, and Ukraine.
Yeah.
Are we happy for all of these songs? Are we quite glad that we got them right?
Yeah, because you know what? Every single one of those, even the ones that I didn't particularly like, every single one of those did do a good performance, minus maybe one that I didn't think was vocally very great, but we all knew that was going through anyway. Yeah, actually, I don't know. We're obviously talking about who didn't qualify as well, and there's a major issue for me there.
Yeah, we will get into that.
What about you?
Yeah, I was pretty happy overall. I was really, really pleased for Norway. I thought Kyle did a fantastic job. I think he hit all the vocal. I think he hit all the choreo. Yes, it's a generic song, but you know what? I love a generic song, so it doesn't matter to me. Sweden, we were shocked at how they upgraded the staging with the fireballs.
Yeah. Which is not that much of an upgrade, to be honest, but you just don't expect pyro from Sweden. They never really use pyro that much. Because they just have their staging concept from Melfest, and usually it's just a copy-paste, minus some camera angles that change a little bit because of the shape of the stage or anything.
Dancers.
Yeah. But we've never actually seen them make bigger changes to their staging, and they did. Like when that fire came out, we screamed all night. Basically, yeah, we were gagged. Yeah.
Netherlands. We all know Thomas isn't a huge fan of this song. I do like it. I don't think I think it's getting overhyped in the odds somehow. I think where it was before semi-final 1 made more sense. It was at 7th at one point. That made more sense to me, but I will say this performance captivated me. And I really enjoyed the performance, so I'm glad that qualified. Just enough. Poland.
Fantastic.
And every time I see her, I just say, how is she 52?
Yeah.
She runs more than you do trying to catch a Flipco bus in Bruges.
Yeah.
So energetic. Estonia, I will say, we're not fans of this song. We knew it was a lock qualifier. But I enjoyed the addition to the staging concept of the fan intrusion.
Yeah.
Thomas didn't realize it wasn't real for about 30 seconds.
Just the way that she ran on stage and the guys caught her, and I thought, what's happening? And then she started dancing along and doing the routine. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It was because do you know, I'll be honest, we reacted to the winner's reprise from Estilal because we couldn't find the original performance before he'd actually won. And I don't remember that was in there. So that must have been a change in staging. Or maybe they didn't do it in the winner reprise. I don't know.
It was a change in staging from what I understand. The only reason that I knew it was fake is I had caught the close-up of the woman in the crowd with the sign saying, "Please, can I dance with you?" And it was like, well, that's a weird sign to take into the arena. Because they're not going to pull you up on stage. Like, it's not a gig. And so that was like, that was when I realized. So if you missed that, you would have been confused for 30 seconds.
Yeah. Do you know what it was with Estonia? I did feel, because we obviously talked a little bit during the performance, and I feel like we all agreed that a big part of the performance was not as energetic as we would have liked it to be. The final part was quite energetic, was cool. And there were certain parts where I was like, okay, this is fun. I still think production-wise, this is a well-written song, sonically. It's just not necessarily our cup of tea. And I also still think that, and here's the thing, he's so different in interviews, but on stage, I don't find him very likable. He does come across a little bit arrogant. I think that's just the character that he might be playing. I don't know.
I just don't think it's a great idea for the character to not be likable.
But still, he qualified, and this is the one that I felt most sort of like iffy about, that this qualified over Belgium, because I just didn't think that this was better than that. And I also think the vocal was really off. And it's not a hard song to sing.
No.
I mean, obviously there's a shtick there and it's a character and it's comedy in a way, but Kai is doing comedy in their song as well, and at least they can sing. You're still in a music competition, and singing is a big part of that competition. So in that sense, but I will, we knew it was going to qualify, so I always counted that in.
And the last certified qualifier that made it through was Ukraine. They were kept to the last. It was a very tense moment in the HQ, as you can imagine, and we'll get into. But I'm a big fan of this song. I thought the vocal was great. I'm still not sold on the staging. I love the costuming. I love the overall idea of the staging. This filter really
they did that for a very long time.
It really takes me out of it. But I like the idea of like the lights moving between this backing singer, who give it up for the backing singer.
She is phenomenal.
And to is it Daniel?
Daniel, yeah, something like that.
I liked that. I just get rid of it's very RuPaul Drag Race season 1. Where there's just this crusty ass, like it's like the camera's been smeared in Vaseline.
Yeah.
And it's all just a little bit too blurry for me.
Do you know what it was? There were certain parts where that filter just felt very neon, and I kind of liked it because their color, their outfits were very colorful and neon. And I did think, like, with the backdrop, the colors on the floor and the LEDs in the backdrop, it all fit. But sometimes the filter was so intense that it did just become a blur, and that, I agree, it was sometimes did take you out of the performance. But I wasn't against the idea of having that filter. It just shouldn't have been as much.
Yeah.
And here's another reason why these snippets, where you can't judge on these snippets, everybody chopped them down because of that snippet of the rehearsal, and we all just agreed this staging is a lot better than we had anticipated from judging from that snippet. So they were great. Vocally, he was on point. I thought we're giving credits to the backing vocalist, but he was great as well. He delivered on the night, and that's what you need to do. So definitely a deserved qualifier, although I was hoping for another one to be called last, but definitely a deserved qualifier.
For sure. let's go to one where I had it as a predicted qualifier and you didn't, so it left out. It wasn't a Neil Pass certified, but that was San Marino. In the end, I ended up being shocked that this did qualify a little bit, but it is a party anthem, so it could be that really brought it through.
I mean, people, if we're looking at what qualified, Sweden qualified, Iceland qualified, San Marino qualified, and Estonia qualified, people went for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I did say, I said that about San Marino and about Iceland as well. If they qualify, it's going to be because of the fun factor, not necessarily because of the song itself, but just because people, we talked about this at length in earlier videos, where people just really want something uplifting, maybe, because there's a lot going on in the world. So, but that staging was abysmal. I am sorry, San Marino, but that was just chaotic. It didn't work for me. And
here's another shout out in terms of San Marino. We don't know who they are. They are not credited. But the singers of Tutta l'Italia, every time I've seen them perform it, they sound exactly
like the studio cut.
The studio cut. It is insane. So we do need to give props on that. Anyway.
But then at the same time, I'm sorry for being picky, but they're also just standing still and singing. And it's not a tricky song to sing.
True.
There's not any highs or lows in the note in terms of vocals. So,
but they still sound great. So
yeah, I hate that concept of having them masked and not really. At least now you can see their mouths, so you can sort of see that they're singing. Like in the national selection, they were just completely. Like, you could have just put them in a trash bag and just had two trash bags on stage, and it would have had the same effect, because you just didn't know who they were and what they were doing there. But it still didn't work for me.
Iceland, I was so happy for Vibe. Again, unexpected, but people going for parts on the station was really elevated in terms of from Samverkettningen. It was up. The Minecraft visuals, I think, would have really helped with the younger audience, especially at going first.
Yeah.
When the kids are still awake and paying attention and excited. So that really could have helped Iceland, in my opinion. Yeah, I just thought this was a good party. I thought they did it well. They looked like they were having the time of their lives. They were probably the most excited country to qualify in terms of reaction.
Because they didn't expect it either.
Yeah, their reaction was just absolutely brilliant to watch and quite heartwarming. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And our final qualifier to
sorry, do I not discuss Iceland?
Sorry.
You're just like, I've said what I need to say. Now, I will say I do like Iceland. I do think they deserve to qualify. I thought that was a really good performance. Like you said, elevated. And just they were having fun on stage, which is just so much fun to see. And when you follow them on Instagram, and the amount of videos that they've made trying to get people to vote for them was just so wholesome to watch. And they have such a great sense of humor. And we said this in the previous video, the way that they screamed and made a whole video from going 30 being 34th in the odds to 33rd, as if it was this massive thing. Just really, it was a deserved qualifier.
Well, now they're 24th in the odds, so they must be really celebrating that. Okay, and our final qualifier is Portugal. I think we're both surprised that this did qualify, but we are thrilled. This is a beautiful song. I think the only thing we said, really, when we didn't have this predicted as a qualifier, is don't see how the people at home are going to positively react to this. But clearly they did. I think it helped that they probably stood out on stage in terms of it's a very different type of song from all the rest of it. You look at these, and this is the slowest song out of these.
It is the only slow song.
Yeah. So maybe the fact that it was a very sort of charming band helped. But you have raised, oh my God, my voice broke again. You have raised a concern about the big stage.
For this particular, I did think that, and again, we do both love this song. We both have this high up in our ranking, and we didn't think it was going to qualify. And I still think, looking at the performance, I'm not talking about the vocals. The vocals were fantastic. I'm talking about the staging and the camera angles and everything around it. For me, didn't work. I didn't connect with it the way that I wanted to. I felt like it lost a lot of its charm that it had at Festival de Canchal, because that was this much smaller, intimate staging. I felt like for this one there was way too many wide shots. It was basically just the camera angles. It wasn't, the color palette of the backdrop was beautiful. Their outfits were great. Like I said, vocals were great. It's just the camera angles didn't work for me. It took me out of the sort of like haze that I have when I listen to the song or when I watch their national final performance. And I did not think that it was going to qualify. So I'm happy that they did because, again, love the song. But do I think it was necessarily a deserved qualifier with the entire package and the lineup that we had?
Okay, yeah.
That's,
Okay. Before we get into Belgium and Cyprus, let's talk a little quickly about Slovenia, Azerbaijan, and Croatia.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the non-qualification of these countries?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we both thought Slovenia was going to qualify. I did actually think that was going to qualify.
Towards the end, especially in our final prediction video, I was more inclined to swap that out with San Marino.
Yeah, I mean, we had two ballots, and we did at some point in one of our videos say either one of them is going to qualify. Mm-hmm. We just gave the edge to Slovenia because we just thought that staging-wise and the story behind it, and having his wife come up on stage, it was already. We all gasped when his wife came on stage, even though we knew it was going to happen because we'd seen it. It was spoiled already, but we all gasped when that came on. I thought it was beautiful. Some people argued online that for the casual viewer, suddenly seeing him upside down would have taken them out of the performance. I can understand that. So maybe that was it.
I think Dude said that some people she had spoken to laughed when he went upside down, which is the opposite reaction that you would want from what is behind the story, of course. I'm not shocked that it didn't qualify. I'm not shocked, but I did think it had the edge performance-wise over Portugal. But people disagreed, and someone also pointed out that Norway is the only one fully in English that qualified. So people also just enjoy a song in a different language. So that might also have something to do with it. I don't know. Who knows? We then go to Azerbaijan. This was I'm just gonna say it. We try and be very nice here, but to me this was the worst performance of the night. Vocally and most of the staging I didn't agree with. Or I didn't like. It's not a term of agreement. I didn't like what they were wearing. I did like the halos on the stage, but really I did like the LEDs as well. They were cute, but what they were wearing visually didn't work for me. It didn't connect with the song, and the vocal just was not there at all, in my opinion.
The vocal was abysmal for most of the part, and that's what killed them. I completely disagree on the outfits. I thought the outfits were fire. I think they really fit the song. They fit the vibe of the song. They fit the music video. Now, you obviously weren't a fan of the song from the start. I was, so I watched that music video several times because I love that song. So I disagree on the staging itself. I think the lighting and the staging in itself was decent enough. I think the colors, the orange colors, which they often do, Azerbaijan, being the land of fire. I think that all worked. I think the main issue was the vocals and some of the camera angles. It felt empty at points, and this is why I'm not. This is why I also said that with Portugal. These wide shots, I don't know why countries do that. If there's nothing to fill it with, why do you have all these wide shots? Unless you've got dancers everywhere that are, even in San Marino had lots of wide shots, but you had the dancers in the corners of the stage doing their thing. Yeah. So that kind of works. But with Azerbaijan, that didn't work. And
you could go to an audience shot, but then you do run the risk of what if they hit an audience member who isn't having a good time. But especially if you want to be more of a party atmosphere, they were getting really close to the camera, they wanted to connect, and then it was like poof, we're away. Now, I am a Poison Cake defender. I do love this song, but I'm not surprised it didn't qualify. I thought overall the vocal was good. There were parts that were not. I enjoyed the womps and the staging effects. I know that here I'm alone on that. I also really enjoyed the complete station shift. I thought it was clever to go more into the witchy theme because it does have this sort of witchy, poison cakey undertone, like Hansel and Gretel type
Yeah.
story. So it was clever to go into that because it would give more chance for the people at home to understand what is going on in a song which in 3 minutes does a lot of different sounds, which can be difficult to understand at first listen. It would have helped, but yeah, I'm not shocked.
Yeah, no, I'm not shocked either. I will say I think the staging massively upgraded from Dora, so that was great. I think the vocal, I didn't really hear any major issues with the vocal, so I think the vocal was great for most of the song. I think his charisma was great. I liked the outfit that he was wearing. I liked what they did with the backdrop. That was all a big upgrade. I just cannot get into the song.
Yeah.
That's the main issue for me. Do you know those?
We'll put up a clip of us watching this song, and Thomas is just on his phone.
I just can't. I just can't.
I'm shouting at him to pay attention.
Yeah, and I'm like, leave me alone. I don't like the song. Here's the thing. Me and Sarah, whose lovely house we're in. We both agreed that it just felt like it was trying to be edgy and cool and different, but sort of overdoing it and failing. The song just didn't work for me. Never did. I'd never really got into it. It was sort of in the bottom of my list, and it never really. That's one that a few of my bottom 10 grew on me over the weeks. That one did not. I didn't hate it either. I just didn't think it worked very well. And for me, like you said, the sort of like the on-screen visual, the shaky, wobbly thing, it took me back to Okman for Poland a few years ago, and how that was horrid staging. And if you're gonna do, because Iceland did the on-screen visuals very cleverly with a fish jumping out of the water and stuff like that. That all really worked very well.
It fit in the theme.
With this one, it was just no. They could have done a cool lighting effect with that instead of having that shaky thing. But I don't think that's the reason why it didn't qualify. The song was the major issue.
Yeah. Okay, let's speak about Cyprus. Theo Evans was 73% predicted to qualify based on EurovisionWorld.com odds. Again, failed to qualify. I wasn't overall surprised about this. The vocal was shaky. Although the staging concept was good, I don't think it worked for the full song. It worked for the start with the Vitruvian Man. Is that how you say it?
The Vitruvian Man, yeah. Leonardo, yeah.
It worked for that, but there was, I think we all mentioned there was a lot where it just felt like there was too much concentration going into where do I need to jump to next.
Yeah. There was no connection with the audience whatsoever, no connection with the camera. Like you said, the start was really good because he was just hanging there, or he wasn't hanging, he was standing. The dancers were hanging behind him. That was a cool image. When we saw that, we both went, "Oh, this is qualifying." But
we felt vindicated because people had laughed at us for saying this was qualifying.
It had every ingredient to qualify. It was a good song. Obviously, the vocals have always been a question mark because we'd never really heard any live performance from him. He didn't do any pre-parties. And the only performance that he did at the Greek national final was playback. So that was a big question mark. I'll get into the vocal in a second. But when I saw that image, I was like, oh, this is great. But then as soon as they get off, and that the sort of like, I'm just going to call these the Sam Ryder shapes, because it looked very similar to Sam Ryder's staging in 2022. As soon as those shapes started to move and they tilted them and they were climbing them, that's fine for the dancers. You as a singer, you need to let them do all that acrobatic shit and you need to focus on the camera. And that's what he did not do. The vocal was not good. And after his performance, I was like, yeah, this is in the danger zone.
Yeah. will also say that in the sort of instrumental part where he comes out and there's this blurry effect,
Hmm.
and then he leaves the stage and there is just a blank screen for 5 seconds or so.
Yeah, that white sort of LED. Yeah.
And then that I'm like, I'm sorry, you get 3 minutes to impress Europe and Australia, and you're leaving 5 seconds of it on a blank screen. That made no sense to me, and
No.
I also didn't like the blur effect. I thought they really could have done something great with that little slow instrumental bit and build up to the final chorus, but they just didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, last laugh is on the people who laughed at us for saying that this was qualifying. So there we go. You were right.
On paper, it should have been a qualifier. The song was good enough to qualify. It just, they ruined it. And I think back of was it Leslie Roy for Ireland,
Yeah.
who had very ambitious staging as well, and it just took you out, and you could see her stressing, running. Wasn't she running on a mill at some point?
Yeah,
Or
I think so, yeah.
You could see her stressing about I shouldn't fall. I need to get these camera angles. I need to make sure that I'm right in between all of these props that we have, so the angle is great. It didn't work, and it didn't work here either. He was too focused on staging rather than performing. So yeah. Anyway,
it was style over substance, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Okay, I am going to turn the microphone over to Thomas now. So the final non-qualifier we need to talk about is Belgium. To many, a shock. I am seeing some people who aren't surprised, but I don't understand them. But yeah,
we're not going to talk about them.
An 88% qualifying chance before the semi-final, again, according to EurovisionWorld.com. And yeah. What happened?
Look, I'm not going to discuss this very long. Everything worked for me. The staging was phenomenal. I think it's the best staging that we've ever had. It was just insane. The camera angles were on point. He had all the cues. He made all the cues. He looked natural. His vocal was great. The only thing I can say, the vocal was quiet. That is a sound mixing issue, which we also had in Norway and a couple of other countries, where several times throughout the show we were like, you can barely hear the singer. Like, something was off there. Is that why he didn't qualify? I don't think so. I think it has more to do with the genre of the song. We talked about this morning. You said people maybe were just not ready for this kind of song at Eurovision. I tend to agree, because there's nothing else that I can fault it for. This was phenomenal from start to finish. All three of us went like, ooh, oh, throughout this performance. Like, it just, I've watched it back several times last night, and this morning I watched it back as well, and it just makes no sense to me. This is the only one, when I go back to that graphic from Eurovision World, obviously you guys can't see this. When I look at this thing, where you have the list of the odds of those 15 countries, that's the only one that does not fit in the bottom 5. It doesn't fit there. It doesn't belong there. I don't know how this could have happened. And the reaction of the fans, even the people who didn't like the song from the start, who were amazed by the staging, even they're like, this isn't right. This is weird. What happened? It just... And here's the thing, I will say this, and this is going to be the first and the last time that I'm going to mention this, because I know I'm going to get hate, but Eurofans just want pop and some novelty acts. That's what they want. They want a generic pop song. And you see this time and time again, where a lot of these sort of more edgy performances or edgy songs that are not necessarily common at Eurovision, sometimes they can do really well if the public backs it. Or think about back at Portugal winning the contest in 2017. But most of the time, it always feels like it's too early to have it.
I just don't know what happened. I have tried to look at it from different perspectives of people who don't necessarily enjoy the song. If you're at home and you're not a big fan of the song, the station needs to do a lot to pull you back in and to convince you. I can't see, the only thing that I can really think of in terms of staging as to what people might not have liked that is the moment where he's sort of mounting his own reflection does look a little bit strange to me as well. That was my least favorite part of the staging, which I enjoyed overall 100%. Like, it still worked. I still liked it, but that was my least favorite part of it.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe people might have wanted more from the final chorus because he's doing this huge long note and then it's like the final huge instrumental. I don't think there was more that could have been done. Maybe people didn't appreciate the backdrop with the clones. I honestly,
We've had that before where it worked.
I'm trying to figure anything out, and I'm struggling because
Same.
Yeah,
even Red Sebastian, after his first initial reaction, which I do want to point out was very sweet and wholesome. He congratulated all the contestants, and he just said, I don't understand what went wrong, and he said, I'll probably be thinking about this for days, trying to figure out where it went wrong. But he said, I can't fault myself for anything. I did what we had to do, or we as a team did what we had to do. We did everything the way that we wanted it to do. So sometimes things just don't work out. It's just gutting for me that it's with my country, and it's 2 years in a row where. But here's the thing, right? Every time that Belgium hasn't qualified in the last couple of years, although it always makes me a little bit angry at the moment itself, and I always say I'm never watching Eurovision again. But then the next morning, I sort of like look back and think, oh, well, that wasn't great. That wasn't good. Musti's vocals weren't great last year. The staging for big parts was not great. It felt a bit empty. Senik was another fan favorite, one of the bookies' favorite who didn't make it. Staging was not it. Blanche was tipped as a winner. She still came fourth, but vocally and it wasn't great. Staging wasn't great. Who else do we have that didn't qualify? In the last couple of years, Elliot, great song, horrible staging, but with this one, I just can't find anything apart from the vocal being quiet, which is not the Belgian team's fault. That is just sound mixing.
It could still be something for people at home though, to not vote for it.
The quiet vocals, you mean? Yeah, it could be.
Although not the fault of, it could still be a reason.
Yeah, but then others that had quiet vocals did qualify, like Norway. Norway's vocals were also really quiet. Great vocals, but also really quiet. Also sound mixing issue. The only thing that I can think of is the genre, that because people didn't. It was a very polarizing entry from the start. Lots of people really loved it, but also lots of people really didn't get this kind of genre. So maybe
the people who didn't get it just outnumbered.
That's the only thing, because like Seppa said himself, I can't fault him for anything, or the Belgian team. They did everything right. I think this was staging wise. This was by far the best staging of the night.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was,
but it didn't work out. It didn't. It is what it is.
We do have to give a huge commendation to Red Sebastian for, despite what had gone on the day before, still sticking with his commitments that he'd already made to go to the House of Helvetia with blogs,
Euro Club,
and William told a story. William Lee Adams told a story at the blog thing to say that almost straight away they had messaged the media contact for Belgium saying what you guys want to do, and the immediate response was Red Sebastian will be there.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really courageous and great way to be. I hope he enjoys the rest of his time in Switzerland. Now that the pressure is off, I feel like the artists are able to do that this year, because there's not this suffocating energy. Although we're still talking about the issues with a certain participating country being involved, it doesn't feel as suffocating this year.
No, I feel like there's a safer space. I feel like, because this is what Red Sebastian also said in an interview with HLN, where he said, like, they have listened and they have made improvements, and he felt like, or the overall consensus with the artists was that they have these spaces where they can relax and they don't feel that massive pressure as a lot of them did last year. So there's still a lot of work to be done. You know, they can't fix every problem in 1 year. This is going to take a while, but I'm happy that there are improvements, and I'm happy that artists are enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
I also just quickly want to point out, this has nothing to do with that, but with his non-qualification. I want to do a big shout out to the artists really supporting each other after the qualifiers announcement.
Sweet.
We saw Marco, we saw
Beatrice
from Albania, and Justina passing and really giving him a big hug. And I think Beatrice at some point, she was hugging him for such a long time, and the security guy that had to drag her away to go to the press conference and go backstage, he had to drag her away, so she left, and then even that security guard dragged her away and then gave Red Sebastian a big hug. So that was beautiful to see. That I feel like they're a lot closer this year, whereas last year I felt like it was very fractured. There were certain cliques. That sounds negative. I don't mean it in a negative, but there were cliques like these artists get along, these get along, and then there was some, friction.
There kind of was.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll obviously focus more on these guys after.
Yeah.
But we need to talk about Italy, Spain, and Switzerland very, very quickly. Italy, what do you think? What did you think of the showcase performance?
Italy, for me, as expected, vocally brilliant. I think he in itself is a good singer. I think he's got an interesting look. But I will say, even though I quite enjoy the song, the performance doesn't grab me. The staging doesn't grab me. It doesn't really work for me. I also feel like a lot of the time, he's not really performing to the audience or the audience at home, for that matter. I feel like he might be slightly too much in his own performance, in his own head, and not really focusing on... Because it's still a TV show. Do you know what I mean? Like, for a music video, that works. But for a big stage performance like this, you need to connect with the camera, and I was missing that. I don't know with Italy how this is going to do. I feel like this could be one of Italy's worst placements in a few years, because they have got, they've gotten top 10 after top 10.
The staging is almost too simple, but also too strange for me, with the very oversized speakers and the very long piano. It feels sort of Eurovision 2010.
Yeah, and it all has its meaning.
Yeah.
With the message of the song, obviously, but that doesn't mean it necessarily works on camera. Yeah, but overall, his vocal was great, so that's,
One you were very complimentary about, I remember, Spain, Melody, as a diva.
Do you know what? I did miss the flamenco hair flip. I did miss that. I'm sad that they took that out.
Maybe in the final, maybe.
Maybe. But yeah, I was missing a bit color. It could have been a bit more colorful. It was very cool and very cold at moments. But other than that, she is an incredible performer, an incredible singer. She does some notes that make me go, how?
Yeah.
How do you do this? So overall, I thought this was a great performance. I think the staging looked really cool. The only thing that I can fault it at is I wanted a little bit more color, a little more warmth coming from Spain. But other than that, fantastic.
I also want to say, this is one where some of the camera shots have been really thought about. There is one shot, I think you missed it, but there was one shot when she's doing her costume change where it just literally very quickly changes, and you just see a boot step into the screen and it's a walking moment. And
that was a moment where I thought you said, "Oh, the camera focused on her boot for a second," but you said boot.
And I don't know, it just felt very purposeful and just
thoughtful,
ready. It was like someone going to walk into a party, and it felt dramatic. And this song does have its dramatic parts.
Exactly. And you know what? Do you remember Chanel staging, the start of her staging, where she just walks on the stage and you can hear the sound of the heels? Just having those legs if you just say it like that, it would sound like a mistake.
Mm.
But sometimes visually that can work so well. So it was clever staging from Spain, definitely.
And then finally Switzerland. Stunning. Right, we need to. Obviously, there's a camera issue.
Yeah.
We don't need to get. We can. This format. Other than Res Sebastian, for me, this was the best station of the night.
Yeah.
This was stunning. The vocal is gorgeous. We both, I think we've both said this is our favorite ballad.
Oh yeah,
of the year.
In a long, not just of the year, in a long time.
In a long time, yeah.
And we're both not big on ballads.
We're not, but this is fast becoming one of my favorite entries this year. The camera shots were so beautiful. The in and out of focus. I know a lot of people have compared it to Barbara Pravi.
But here's the thing. Remember when we watched, and I said at some point, like the only thing, she was still performing. She was like halfway through the song. And I said, the one thing she needs to be careful with is that it doesn't compare too much to Barbara Pravi, because it was very similar. The angles of the camera, the dark backdrop, it was just a spotlight on her. That's what Barbara Pravi did. But the moment I said it, the stage lit up and there was all these lights everywhere. I was like, yes, that's what I wanted right now. And it came in the right exact moment. Fantastic.
And the big dramatic moment of the song, the almost sort of, I don't even know how to describe it, almost like jump scare horror, like
eerie, yeah. The sort of like, and the camera going like doing, it's that part where she goes like a voyage. Yeah, that was very dramatic. Yeah,
so unexpected for me. And I think I maybe screamed a little bit.
We both, all of us, we went. We just like with Red Sebastian, there were a lot of oohs and ahs during the staging. Yeah,
I think this is simplicity at its best, but also artistic, and this is what you do as a host country. This is what you should aim for as a host country. I see that. I don't know if it was today or tomorrow or whatever, but ESC Gabe has a video titled "They Could Win It All Again," and who honestly knows what could happen, because we've had an insane voting sequence already.
I will say, I think it could win. I think it could potentially win the jury. I do not come at me if this isn't correct, because I have made some really wrong predictions in previous videos this year. I think it could win the jury with that staging. I don't know about the televote. My idea remains that people do not necessarily want a country to win twice in a row, especially in the televote. You often see really low televote score for the host country. But yeah, phenomenal staging. My favorite part of the staging was a very simplistic moment. It was more towards the middle or start of the song, where you have just that one spotlight on her. She's doing her thing, she's singing, and the camera pans and faces the direction where the spotlight is coming from, and it put this sort of like a halo around her. And it almost felt angelic. That compared to that angelic voice, that to me gave me goosebumps. I'm even having goosebumps right now thinking about it. Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely great work. When you're an automatic qualifier, you don't need to appease the televote to get into the final. You can take the risk of sending something a little bit less televote friendly, a little bit more jury friendly. Would Switzerland want to win again? I potentially doubt it, but
the right-wing politicians in Switzerland would go apeshit if they have to organize it again.
I'm kind of seeing that there is a path to it.
Where are they in the odds right now? Let's have a look. 8th. Yeah, that's a lot higher than she was 2-3 weeks ago, to say. I agree there is a path, but it is a very narrow path. I think there are other, we talked about Sweden. At some point during Sweden's performance, when the fire came out, I yelled at that point, this is how they win it.
Yeah. Anyway. Great show.
Yeah.
Actually, now we've gone through all that, I'm like, this was a fantastic show.
It was a fantastic show. They just need to clear up some of the issues that they had with the cameras. And they need to fix the audio. They need to fix the sound mixing, because just like with Liverpool, it was not it. And it was in several performances. And that is unacceptable, I think. Other than that,
For
great
Song
show, great
Contest, yeah.
production, but you need to be able to hear the vocals.
Okay. What did you guys think of semi-final one? I don't know why I'm looking at the ring light instead of the camera. Hello. What did you guys think of semi-final one? Did your favourites qualify? Did you lose any of your favourites? Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Remember, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and ring the notification bell. And you can go to niallpoints.com to find all of our links. They're also in the description too. And we will see you later today.
Oh, maybe another shout out for our live stream on Friday.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and we've got a live stream tomorrow.
Yes.
Christ. At 7:30. Come join us. It'll be fun.
We'll be talking all kinds of Eurovision stuff this year, previous years, whatever you want to talk about. And
We'll ramble.
people can come into the stream if they want.
Yeah, if we've not
Just message
contacted
us.
you and you want to join, give us a wee message or comment.
Or even during the live stream, send us a message on Blue Sky. We'll check it, and if you want, you can come join and give your thoughts on the contest.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Yeah, and we'll be back very soon, later today, with our final pre-show semi-2 predictions.
Yeah,
Of which we will probably be very wrong again.
I mean, we had 7.
Yeah,
That's not too bad.
it's all right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We just
Okay.
missed one of our very big favorites. Anyway, we'll see you then.